Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Jason is engineering the broadcast at GCN in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli, live in Spain. Dr. Margaret. Welcome, Dr. Margaret.
Well, thank you, Vincent. Welcome to you.
Dr. Margaret, I wanted to ask you, Mrs. Finelli and I have watched a series on television. It's from Europe, and it's called Escape to the Country. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about life in Europe. And what I've noticed, if it's true, based on Escape to the Country, that series, what was happening is people probably close to retirement age or retirement age have said, you know what, we've had it with the high cost of living in London. We want to escape to the countryside. We want to buy a little farm, a little farmette, maybe a little more land, maybe some property with a stream or a meadow. Or maybe we can raise a couple of animals, that kind of thing. And what I paid attention to was the extreme cost compared to the United States. The cost of living in Europe is really, really high per square foot, but the construction is completely different. So, for example, people were buying a home that might be 200 years old. The walls would be several feet thick. But what I saw that was most interesting to me was what I would say a minimal electric service, meaning not a lot of amperes, and I didn't see air conditioning anywhere, no central air conditioning in any of these houses. Is that true?
Yes, well, I'm in Spain, so I'm in the northwest, which is a coastal climate, very similar to New Orleans, maybe 5 to 10 degrees colder in general. But people here do not have air conditioners. They do not have screens on the windows. Many don't have central heating. Cost. People, I always hear, particularly Americans, say how expensive food is here, living, and I don't know what they're talking about. I find cost to be half as much or less than half as much. Price per meter, square meter, if you're buying in Madrid, it's like New York. If you're buying in the countryside, nowhere near that. And this came to mind as you were talking, which really attracts me, and I hope that I'd be able to do it someday. But there's been such an abandonment of the general countryside in Spain because it's still rather underdeveloped. And the youth, let's say 35, 45 and under, are leaving. They don't want to live in the villages with the rivers running through and the mills that grind the flour and the pastures and the fruit trees and the forests and the ocean. They don't want to have to work to make a living, so they're abandoning villages that maybe there are 3 houses, 5 houses, maybe 10, that are now totally abandoned. Or maybe there's 1 or 2 very old people living there. They are inviting people, young families, hopefully with children, to come live there free. And they'll give them a house if they will help repopulate and do something good for the town. Perhaps be a teacher, maybe a doctor, maybe a shoemaker, maybe they're a bread maker, whatever. So there are so many Europeans who have moved to Spain, particularly in the south, because they love the weather. There are Germans everywhere. But that's pretty much of a regional thing. Where I am, it's more immigrants, people who left Spain during the Civil War, went to South America, survived, made a living, and now have come back. And they're rebuilding the old family properties. So I just see it as full of opportunities. And the cost of food, here you buy meat or anything by the kilo, 2.2 pounds per kilo. So the finest cured ham in the States is between 18 and 33 a pound. Here, it might be 18 for 2.2 pounds. So, and then here, it's fresh. They make the cheese, they grow the grapes, they make the wine, they preserve the meats. It's not more expensive. Or maybe I'm seeing things through rose-colored glasses, but for me, in terms of living, I live here much better than I could afford to live in the States. I have all of my family's in the States. I compare the prices. They come here, and they see the difference. There's no comparison. I don't know if they're saying it to make people afraid, but there's a lot of land. There's a lot of housing to recover. People here don't need 2 acres or 20,000 acres, but you can have a very productive little homestead on an acre, and then your neighbors do, and then they no, I'm sorry. There are a lot of economical, and I would say higher quality living opportunities over here than over there. I'm so sad to say.
How about
because I'd love, to be able to enjoy my United States, but in terms of my own economic and social survival, it's outpriced. I can't do it. I'm retired.
Okay. How about regulations in Spain compared to regulations in the United States?
It's so funny. Pardon me for laughing, but I do tend to be, I do try to see things in a funny way. Mm-hmm. Here, regulations, there are regulations, there are laws, not that we might recognize. And again, it helps if you know someone or perhaps if you have a family member from here who's on the police force. But even then, people put up buildings overnight. They move property markers like stones. They say here they make the stones walk. You can do things before anybody wakes up, and then, it's just going to stay there. There's a lot more. It's like, to me, old New Orleans, or that movie, what was it? It was about 3 gold miners where they said, we don't need no stinking badges. There are regulations. You might get in a fight with somebody over something. Sometimes it's hard to find out exactly what part of a building belongs to who and what. But, no, there's, and nobody's going to get on your case for having your grass an inch too long.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that because I don't like regulations, and the reason we moved to this part of Missouri is because it's still the Wild West. There is no building inspector in the county. There are only a few cops, and we're out of the way, so it's difficult. It probably, if they're lazy, they don't want to come here anyway. So we take care of ourselves. And as far as building permits, we built our farmhouse, worked on it, excavation for 18 months before the revenue agent even found out about it. I wasn't telling them. We just built it. And then we built a garage and a barn. We don't care what they think the rules are. We do what we want. And once the building is there, right, what are they going to do? And you can do that when you don't have nosy neighbors. But when you have nosy neighbors that think it's their duty to call the authorities on you, that makes for a lot of trouble. And I don't like nosy neighbors. So I think it's wonderful what you're saying. I really do. So you have to take care of yourself.
A lot of the reason. Pardon me.
You have to take care of yourself. So you're talking about moving property markers. You know, so if a guy decides that the corner of our property needs to go farther away from their property where they could grab land, I mean, they can do that, but they'll be met with lead. They really will. I mean, we'll show up. We'll show up and show them where it used to be, and we'll encourage them to put it back where it used to be. You know,
well,
and we'll tell them,
now
look.
Here's another thing about living as a foreigner in another place with a strong culture. And let me just go to the lead point. People here are generally unarmed. Of course, we know the royalty and the blessed are armed, okay? And they always have been. In the old days, it was the royalty who were allowed to hunt, and the peasants were convicted for having a weapon, okay? So now here the general thing is that people don't have weapons, but I'm telling you, you don't want to meet a neighbor in this area at night with their garden tools. People have it out with their hoe and their rakes and their little grass knives. And they use grass knives here, which look like the reaper from the death. You know, that long reaper that he carries? Yeah. You know the image I'm giving you?
Sure.
Well, they carry that, and they're 80-year-old women, and they can work that thing all day long. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's metals. You can have disputes. I'm going to go to the point that it's important to try to establish good relations. Here, families are very strong, and everybody's married to somebody's cousin. But if you're nice and get along and share and try to become a part, then it, you know, like they tell me, we adopt you, you know. Now, if I came over here riding a big, well, they don't like the fact that I drove a 4x4. They thought that wasn't appropriate for a female, but they just had to live with it. But no, social relations are important. You know your neighbors here. They walk on the street. When I came here and my friends would come here, it's like, what are all the people doing on the street? You know, even if you're out in the country, these people will walk for kilometers and think nothing of it. So people talk to each other. I kiss and hug my neighbors, especially the older folks. You know, they bring me the vegetables. I try to speak the language. I don't make any problems. And that's real important. Maybe more important here than over there because, I don't know, the country, the U.S. is now so sort of nervous, so tense, a little bit hostile. Not warm. Of course, I come from New Orleans, and there the culture is still really nice. We love each other, you know. But social relations are important. Economically, I say here is much better.
When
and safety-wise.
Yeah. When we come back, I'd like to ask you, how much does it cost to live in Spain? Dr. Margaret's with us, and I got us off on a tangent about life in Spain. After the bottom of the hour break, we'll talk about preserving and surviving food and what you need to know. But I thought you'd be interested in learning about Spain because you really can't get this information in the mainstream media, but you can from Dr. Margaret, who is a USA Prepares instructor who lives in Spain. Margaret, how much does it cost to live in Spain? And let me kind of preface this question. I believe that if someone wanted to live in Missouri and be in the rural part of the country, and if that person were handy, you could live as a family of two, possibly three, on $17,000 net per year. What would be the equivalent? Now I'm talking about you could have a house, a car, or a truck, and maybe a small farm. And if you were out of debt, you could survive on $17,000 a year. Is there equivalent number that you can think of for living in Spain?
Well, several issues. Number one, what's the exchange rate of the dollar to the euro? Which sometimes it's 141 a dollar to 1 euro. Right now it's about 112 or 114 a dollar to a euro. In the past, 20 years ago, it was 1 euro bought you $2, so it was reversed. Okay, that's one issue. What's your exchange rate? Number two is, and I just doesn't really fit, but I'm going to add it in here. There are several sites on the internet that people can go to look because the prices of property and the properties available vary drastically just within the country. This is a very varied peninsula. So one site on internet is called Think Spain. And I could tell you some other ones, but they might be in Spanish. So what I do is I get on a search engine and I put in cheap properties in Spain. And many of them will come up. Most of them offer English services. And you can look around the peninsula to what area, because again, the 7 provinces are extremely different. If you're thinking about Catalonia, Barcelona, think New York prices. If you're thinking about Madrid, think New York prices. Then you have beautiful, large but smaller cities, Granada, Sevilla, and then you have other parts of southern Spain. You have mountains in the Pyrenees. You have I can't explain everything. If you look at a map of Spain, you'll see the difference. It's very varied and delightful. Go to sites that offer these properties, and I always put in cheap properties in Spain, and then they'll give you the full range. So you can get things up to $1 million, but I mean, we're talking about super luxury. And you can, I think I was looking the other day at something with about, 5 acres, full of fruit trees, had a little river running through, 10 minutes from the village, an hour from an airport, a bedroom with maybe, a house with maybe 1 or 2 bathrooms and several bedrooms in decent condition, 67,000 euros. So do that conversion, you're around 80,000.
Sounds wonderful.
It's just get on your search engine and look around, and you can ask for houses, you can ask for land, you can ask for ruins, you can pick the sites. They give you the little photo slide deals. Again, it's available there. And let me add in something else, which isn't really attached. However, the other day you mentioned about, what was it? Google, and I think it was you who suggested using DuckDuckGo. Was that you?
Yes, it was.
Okay, well, I heard on another program with a woman, I can't remember her name, but her program is Deception Bites, and she announced that DuckDuckGo has just been purchased by Google. So I didn't bother to check that out. I can't do everything, but I thought it was important enough to mention.
That figures. I don't know that for sure, but I will investigate that. When we come back, one other question about refrigeration. Here, pretty much everybody has refrigeration. Is it the same in Spain? We'll be right back. Plus, I just want to let you know that here at our farm, we have some equipment made in Spain. And the hay mower that we use is made by a company called Kuhn. Ours is sprayed green, so John Deere bought the Kuhn hay mower, and it is the finest hay mower ever made, in my opinion. It is absolutely magnificent. It cuts twice as fast as anything else we've seen. It is brilliant in engineering. So what I wanted to convey is there are products, for those of you who live in the United States, there are products that are made outside of the United States, like in Europe, that are spectacular. Marvels of excellence in engineering. And the Kuhn hay mower that we have is just one of those products, and it's made in Spain. So my question, Dr. Margaret, is refrigeration. Is refrigeration as common in Spain as it is in the United States? And here's what I mean by that. I would say just about every house in the United States has a refrigerator. Some have a refrigerator and a freezer. Some of them have a refrigerator in the kitchen, and they have a spare refrigerator because they wanted to update and have a new shiny stainless steel one in the kitchen and put the old one that works great. There was no reason to move it out of the kitchen, but now it's in the garage. So many houses have multiple refrigerators, like one in the kitchen and one in the garage. What is refrigeration like in Spain?
Okay, now you've really done it. You've hit on one of the things that really has aggravated me since I came here. First of all, there's less refrigeration. Second, when I first went to England, another country, and then came here, refrigerators, are about the size of a little camping refrigerator. People don't have the large double, triple door with the ice maker on the outside and blinking lights and all of that. You get used to having in my family, our refrigerator was full of stuff we often didn't get around to using. But here, just count on having smaller refrigerator space, and you may buy a refrigerator with no freezer. Now, you can buy them with freezers. It might have two little shelves in it. The new world is coming in, and you can get access to the bigger things if you want to. But customarily, you have much less space for refrigeration. Now, this is the thing that really bugs me. Milk, okay? How do we manufacture and market and store milk? So when I go to the grocery store or the supermarket or whatever you call it nowadays in the United States, I have to put on a coat to walk next to the refrigerated milk section, okay? The long aisles, freezing cold, sometimes with the doors open. Many milk counters in the States have no lids, no doors. It's just open, refrigerating, shooting out the cold. Here, milk is not sold cold. Milk is sold in small things they call bricks or blocks. Maybe in the States they're now selling wine in these bricks or blocks. They're sort of carton with some sort of lining. It's not a bottle. Am I explaining myself?
Sure. Kind of like we can buy wine in boxes. They have a plastic bag inside, and you punch out a little hole in the bottom, and a spout comes out. Sure, we have that. Mm-hmm. That
kind of deal. Okay, well, that's how they sell milk. Milk does not come in glass or plastic 1-gallon jars. Containers that are already refrigerated, so you have to put it in the basket, run around the store, check out, get to the car, stick it in there, make sure it doesn't get hot, get it home. It's a whole rigmarole. Here, you buy your little blocks. They're either a liter or a half liter. They do not have to be refrigerated until after opening. It's pure natural milk. You can get it, complete milk, semi whatever, completely no fat, whatever. But no, and so this is what bugs me about it, because I'm not an economist, but I am an analyst, and I'm a problem solver like you and all our friends. I wonder how much electricity is spent per hour or per day on refrigerating milk in the United States. Now we're talking about all the stores, all the milk, all the, refrigerators. How much is spent on electricity per day on refrigerating a product that does not have to be refrigerated, and in fact suffers from having been refrigerated, because if it gets unrefrigerated for too long, well, then it's spoiled. And unless you know how to make cottage cheese or something else, you throw it away.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you how much that number is.
Okay.
Americans, on average, spend 4% of their electric bill on refrigeration. Now, how much of that is for milk, I cannot tell you. But I can tell you to power the refrigeration, meaning refrigerator, freezer combination, just refrigerator, or just freezer. Put all that together and average it out. It's 4% of the electric bill. And the average electric bill, I believe, in the United States is probably $200 a month, if you consider all the months, including the ones when you don't use a lot of electricity, which would be when you're not using air conditioning and when you're not using heat. But
well, you can cut that. You can cut. Go ahead.
I'm finding that a lot of people are spending $300, $400 a month for electricity, especially like right now when it is so hot, it's unbearable. Now, our houses are not of the construction that you're used to in Spain. Our houses are typically 2x4 construction, which really means 1.5 inches of board, 3.5 inches, 1.5 by 3.5. That's a 2x4. And then the siding is typically vinyl siding. The insulation is fiberglass. So there's a tremendous amount of heat gain in the summer and a tremendous amount of heat loss in the winter. Now, that's why we have to cool them and heat them so with so much energy as compared to Europe, because your houses are several feet thick, 2 feet thick, 3 feet thick, and they were built a long time ago. Ours, you could shoot a 22 through the side of the house and come inside. In Spain, that 22 would just ricochet off the stone
and hit you.
yeah.
So yes, you see, what we're dealing with are cultures that have longer histories, that have lived longer. There's also different materials. There are different climates. But everybody here has been doing the living thing for hundreds and thousands of years. They've kind of worked it out. In the Americas, we went there and we just built it. And what is there? There's wood, you know. And stone's hard to work, by the way, although over here they're quite good stone workers. So the heat gain, look, so I live in a 200-year-old stone house. The walls are about 1.5 meters thick. What is that? Well, let's say,
5 feet.
That? 1.5 meters. That'd be about 1.5 feet thick.
No, 1.5 meters would be about 5 feet thick.
You're right. Okay, so I'm wrong. So I was thinking in feet. You see, I still am working with metric versus the other one. But let's do it in feet. My walls are about 1.5 feet thick.
Okay.
It's the best. And also in Spain, you know, okay, I've been listening to all the news, and it looks like we're facing disaster, and they're telling us to go underground and all that. There are parts of Spain where you can buy cave houses. People here in certain parts of the country lived in caves traditionally. There's so much available. But stone, you know, if you don't have a cave house, well, nice thick stone houses is pretty good. And in terms of conservation of heat or cool, it's delightful. You know, the temperatures don't change. I'm used to little pine boards, maybe some moss stuck in the middle from the south, you know.
Very interesting what you're saying, Margaret. When we built our house here in Missouri, I wanted to build a stone house, and so did Mrs. Finelli. Now, our stone is not as thick as yours. Now, the stone, buying the stone and hauling it in 50 miles from a quarry, we built it out of a limestone, so it's a white colored stone. It's very hard. It's not like chalk. Limestone is pretty hard. And the stone was the least expensive part of the building. We could buy the stone for $6 a ton. I mean, that's cheaper than vinyl siding. It just took 18 months to get it out of the pile and on the house. But because it was so heavy. We bought 220 tons of stone for the siding. So it was an enormous amount of work. And the most expensive part of the house was getting that siding, that stone, out of the pile and building walls with it. That was the most expensive part. But the maintenance is zero, literally zero, unless there's an earthquake and it cracks. Other than that, we don't have to paint it. We don't have to do anything.
And I lived in St. Louis for a while and was looking at a building, and did have some cracks in it. And, of course, they wanted to condemn it or whatever. And I'm like, this doesn't need to be condemned. So then I visited a friend in Europe for several months. And I noticed all of the houses have cracks in them. But they're stone, and stone settles, so it's not going to fall down. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of when do you do your investment, pre or post? Mm-hmm. Is it worth what you're doing at the beginning to get something that's going to last for generations, even through earthquakes, even through hurricanes? There's so many things to be considered. We really don't have a very varied perspective in the States. And to me, the things that they build are way too large, very exaggerated, unnecessary, highly expensive, and built to fall, built to need replacement. I just don't see it as effective. I don't. I'm living in a village, and all the houses have more than 200 years old.
Mm-hmm. Well, the house plans that we used for our farmhouse is a French farmhouse classic, high-pitched
beautiful
roof. It's got cathedral ceilings, mm-hmm. because we thought that was a great design. It rambles. Mm-hmm. It's got lots of angles. Very difficult to build, but we really liked the architecture. We thought it was pretty neat. We did not build a vinyl house, vinyl siding. We did not. We used the framing was 2x6. If I were to do it again, it'd be 2x8 or 2x10 or 2x12. Mm-hmm. But in this part of the world, having walls that are foot thick, it's very unusual to have walls a foot thick. But we do.
Well,
but there's no flash. There's no flash here. There's no shiny brass. It's all basic, strong, extra strong construction. But we don't have to paint it every 4 or 5 years. We'll be right back. Class, USA Prepares has correspondents in 7 countries. Instructors in 7 countries: Canada, Guatemala, Australia, England, Germany, of course the United States, and now Spain. And Dr. Margaret, I just want to tell you, I am so thankful that you found us and that you became a USA Prepares instructor. You have a wealth of knowledge, and a lexicon is just awesome. So I just want to thank you for your friendship, for your knowledge, and for being a USA Prepares instructor. And I want to say that, before the broadcast ended.
I want to respond. As soon as you start talking to me, I get a big smile on my face. I'm so happy to be a part.
Well,
we don't need to keep on going, but go ahead.
You are faculty. And what that means, the class, in case you're wondering what it means to be a faculty member of USA Prepares, I know many of the instructors. They've been to the farm. We have appeared on stage, same stages, at the same conventions. So I know a lot of the faculty, and every one of the faculties is a wonderful person. Otherwise, they wouldn't be faculty. But what's happened with Margaret and what's happened with Gwyneth is both Margaret and Gwyneth have found us, as other faculty have, and contacted us. And I was so impressed with them that I invited them to be faculty. I mean, instantly. So that's how it happens. And what does it mean? So if you've got a medical question and you're faculty and you need to contact another member of the faculty, it's an unwritten benefit of being faculty. So faculty, if you need Dr. Shealy, no problem. I'll make that happen. If you need Rick Miller, I'll make that happen. If you need Joey, I'll make that happen. Whoever needs to talk to whomever, I'll make it happen. And that's just one of the benefits. But we're a loose organization in terms of there's no written agreements. We're all volunteers. And the only reason we do this is because we want to. And I think that's what drives the other broadcasters crazy, because we're unassailable. I mean, what can they do? Take our income? We don't have an income. Are they going to get us fired from our job? We don't have jobs, right? We just
we're just doing it.
Yeah. So, Margaret, we probably ought to talk about food. What is the difference? We didn't get into what we were going to talk about today. So, if you're available, let's do next Friday, same time, same station, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great.
Okay. So we've done that. What's the difference between food, obtaining food, preparation of food in the United States versus Spain? Is it because we have refrigeration and we go buy frozen pizzas here in the United States and just throw them in the oven, and hey, that's a complete meal. It's got vegetables, it's got all the colors, maybe, pepperoni, and it's got all the oils, all the fats, all the preservatives, all the unpronounceables, and it's quick. Is that the difference between the United States and Spain, where maybe those in Spain wouldn't do that?
Now, again, the new world is seeping in through television, movies, grocery stores, importer, exporters, etc. The students leave and travel abroad and get to taste all the crazy stuff. They want it back home. But when you come back home, again, it's a historic culture which didn't have potato chips, which doesn't have Cheetos, which they didn't have ketchup, no mayonnaise. I mean, if you want something on your sandwich, you put olive oil, tons of olive oil. There's no butter. I mean, now there's butter, but people here don't eat butter. They use olive oil. They know, their life has been producing their own sustenance. There were no grocery stores. There might have been a butcher, but you see, before there were butchers, when it was time to kill the pigs, well, the man traveled around and he killed your pig for you in the family yard. And then it was divided up between the family, and some of it you smoked, and some of it you cooked, and some of it they don't pickle. I'm trying to get pickling of going, you can find pickled pork over here now. It must come from a different part of the country. But, the beans, and then they lived by seasons. When it's time to eat garbanzos, you eat garbanzos. If it's not a certain couple of months in the year, then you're not going to eat any cherries. So, but they adapt. They eat what there is. They're just, so that's one orientation. And if you go to Grandma's house, there's not going to be pizza. Okay? Do we need more music now?
Well, we're out of time for this. We only have about 30 seconds left of this broadcast, Dr. Margaret. But
let me tell you
have
something.
shared Sure.
Let me say this. Anything that we do regarding food and getting ready and all that, I want people to involve their children. The children must be involved. I used to have a children's teaching school. Children are intelligent. They need to be involved. It's their life.
You're absolutely right. Take that smartphone away from them and get them involved in preparedness around the dinner table.
Get them
Dr.
busy.
Margaret,
Teach them.
See you next week. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Steve Elkins is with us, broadcaster on Republic Broadcasting Network. You can hear him on Sundays, 7 to 9 p.m., republicbroadcasting.org. Steve is in Florida. He's a nurse with 27 years experience, ICU, and emergency room. Welcome, Steve.
Hey there, Vincent. How you doing?
Hey, well, a couple things we were going to talk about. One of the things was that fire off the coast of California, Southern California. About 34 people were incinerated. And the reason we're talking about that is because what could have started the fire? And we think this is so important that we wanted to tell you about this today. Steve, would you like to start?
Yeah, actually, I pulled up the article. I went back through my records here, and I found it just the other day. And evidently it's a dive charter boat that was off the coast of Santa Barbara, actually closer to Santa Cruz. Still undetermined how far they were away from shore. But 34 casualties, 5 crew members escaped death. Everybody else pretty much are going to have to identify through DNA remains. It was quite the inferno. Not a whole lot of detail. What I did pick out of the article, which was very interesting, Vincent, was, first of all, the first thing that came to mind was that 5 crew escaped. The fire, the Maydays, actually went out at 3:10 or 3:15 in the morning. It's interesting because most people have been asleep by then. Everybody's asleep, even in crews asleep at 3:15 or so. So 5 crew get off. Everybody else is incinerated. And I noticed that the FBI has taken over this investigation, which is always very, very suspicious with me, because I've seen how rogue the FBI has been in covering up information, or basically when they control an investigation and push out the local authorities, they control the outcome of the investigation too. And we've seen a lot of dirt covering up. I'm very suspicious of this fire. The intensity of it. You and I talked about this last night in some detail, and what your suspicions are. I'll let you bring that up, because that's very, very interesting. I know that's a possibility. I'm looking for other possibilities also. I was thinking maybe tanks, but then again, last night I was thinking about, wait a minute, tanks can't be the possibility. They're explosive under pressure, but they're not oxygen. It's just regular air for scuba tanks. But the wreckage is at the bottom of the ocean, 60 feet down. Unless they decide to pull it up and really tear this thing apart like they do an aircraft that goes down and piece it together and figure out what happened. It may remain at the bottom of the ocean because maybe they're formulating something. I don't know. Like I said, I'm very suspicious of seeing the FBI thrown in there right at the very beginning. After already determining that it wasn't nefarious, there's nothing probably illegal or anything bad, no foul play. It's just that the FBI wants to be there to control the investigation. I'm very suspicious of that.
Okay, here's some of my thoughts.
Okay.
And I'm very concerned about this. So who doesn't have a cell phone? Me, but just about everyone else does. And here's what I know about cell phones. Cell phones have exploded. Yeah, they really have. Cell phones have exploded. And what happens is if the battery of a cell phone gets hot, it's more likely to fail, and it can literally start a fire. There have been fires on airplanes. There is a ban now, as far as I know, and I don't fly either, because I don't know what other people are bringing on board planes, and I don't know what diseases they have, and I'm not going to be in an aluminum tube with recycled air from people who are sick. So I'm not going to do that, and I don't want to be held hostage on an aluminum tube with wings either. But some people bring their cell phones with them, and then another thing is the electromagnetic radiation, of course, within that aluminum tube that you're in. But a lithium-ion battery, when it gets hot, can become unstable and burst into flames. Now, I'm thinking that, and this is all hypothesis on my part,
right.
I'm thinking that everyone had a cell phone, and they went out off the coast. And as you get farther and farther away from a cell phone tower, your cell phone will increase its transmission output or wattage. And that output comes from the battery. So the farther you get away from the tower, the stronger the signal transmitting from your cell phone gets. And the hotter the transmitter in your cell phone gets. So I'm thinking that all of these people who had their cell phones running on maximum power looking for a tower all went dead. And then they all wanted to charge them, probably at the same time. And so some chargers, the chargers that come with your cell phones, are probably the best charger to use because they are regulated to the maximum output from the charger that your cell phone battery can safely handle. So let's say your cell phone can handle 1 ampere of current. Well, if you go to the gas station and buy one of theirs, a universal charger, it may be 2 amperes. which would be twice the rate of charge. And if it's twice the rate of charge, the battery may get hot. Now, if some people sleep with their phones under their pillows, I don't know why, but some people do. Some people put them on their dressers, right next to Kleenex or other combustibles, or next to the charger may be plugged into an outlet that is right next to curtains. How often does that happen? I think pretty often.
Yeah.
So I'm visualizing a situation where we have a whole bunch of chargers all plugged in at the same time to cell phones, and in the hull of a ship where you've got 34 people sleeping, cramped in there. I don't think they have outlets every 2 feet, like in a kitchen, which is code in a kitchen, an outlet every 2 feet. I think they probably plugged them in all around the same place. I think it's entirely possible that they got hot, overheated. One of them caught fire, tinder down there in below deck. One way in, one way out. People were trapped, couldn't see what they're doing, and died.
Yeah.
So that's a tragedy. But what do you do in your case, class? Well, I'm really concerned about this. How many people come in with cell phones into your house and want to plug them in? Because they're low and they're really afraid that they might run out of cell phone battery. So where do they plug them in? Wherever they find the first outlet, right? Well, what would happen if your cell phone caught on fire or your plug-in wall charger caught on fire? Would it be next to something that would burn? Well, I'm really concerned about that. Now, is it just cell phones? No. It's iPads. It's computer notebooks. It's all kinds of electronics. It's rechargeable flashlights. It's a lot of electronic devices with these lithium-ion batteries. And they become more unstable once they've been exposed to high heat. So what would that be? Well, we know that we talked about heat in vehicles and cars yesterday and how temperatures rise and children end up dying in hot cars. All right, well, we learned yesterday that United Parcel, UPS, now is putting thermometers in the back of their trucks. And they are seeing temperatures of 150 degrees, 150. That might be enough to make the batteries unstable. It might be enough, actually it is enough, to make diet soda toxic. 150 degrees. So when your packages arrive, they've been in trucks, tractor trailers, traveling across the country, getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. Maybe they're stored overnight. And maybe they're damaged. Do cell phones get delivered by truck? Absolutely. Do they get delivered by UPS? Absolutely. UPS trucks are brown. I think they run hotter than FedEx trucks, which are white.
Yep, makes sense. Yeah.
So those are my
glad you mentioned
thoughts.
that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Vincent, on the shipping, because if you're correct, temperatures in those trucks get pretty dang hot. And I was in the wine industry for a while. And anybody who's listening who's part of a wine club should make sure that your shipments never come in the summer months at all, because you're going to destroy your wine, ruin the taste value of it. So always have it shipped in the cool months, the fall months, if you like wine. Just let you know.
So Steve, I don't know what the answer is at this point. And I've been thinking about this. And do all of us have these devices in our house? Yeah, probably we do. And do we have curtains? Probably. Do we have rugs? Probably. Do we have pieces of paper and clutter? Probably. Are things flammable where you store or where you charge your cell phone? Probably. So what do? And I'm thinking, make absolutely sure that there are no combustibles around the charger that you plug into the wall. Make sure that the cell phone itself is on a surface that won't burn. Now, how many people put their cell phones on their bedspreads or on their blankets or on their sheets or under their pillow? Now, how exactly is that cell phone going to get cooled while it's heating up, while you're charging it, when you've got a layer of insulation a foot thick, which is the mattress and the box spring?
Right.
Covered by a pillow.
Vincent, that is an excellent theory. Or last time when you told me about it, that is an excellent theory. But here's an issue we have here also. That's why I brought this in with the FBI controlling the investigation now instead of local authorities. Even though they said there's no foul play, they're still investigating. Understanding the power of commerce and how if the truth came out and said, hey, these cell phone batteries exploded because they got too hot or they were charging too fast, do you think this information would actually get out there? Because it would disrupt commerce and it would actually start off a whole slew of lawsuits against these manufacturers because they should have known this stuff. I mean, you're talking about disrupting commerce and a lot of money being paid out in lawsuits. This is what I'm worried about with the FBI jumping in this investigation, which to me, they really don't have any cause to do this. You got the ATF in there. They can look at this fine, but now you got the feds in there, and we understand that suppression of evidence or manufacturing whatever they want to manufacture to continue commerce. I mean, the truth may be that these cell phones did cause the fire, but will we actually find that out? Will it be known? If it disrupts commerce, I'll say it won't be.
Okay, that's exactly why I wanted to go into the description of how dangerous these devices could be. Forget the electromagnetic radiation component, which is deadly in itself. But how many people have thought that, maybe this cell phone needs to be cooled off while the battery's charging? And literally, if you put a pillow of 4 inches of insulation on top of that, it's not going to be able to cool easily. You're preventing it from cooling. And you've got combustibles below it, which would be the sheets, the mattress. You've got combustibles above it, which would be the pillowcase, and the pillowcase film, the polyfilm. It's all combustible. It's crazy. Do we think about that? I don't think so. Steve Elkins is with us, and we've been talking about cell phones, and let me say this. The case of most cell phones, I believe, is the heatsink. So you know that your computer has a fan to cool it off. You know that when you use your cell phone and you hold it in your hand, the longer you're on your cell phone, the hotter it gets. Okay? That's because the heat of the electronics is transferred from those semiconductors to the case, which is the heatsink. Okay? Now, how do you protect your home from catching on fire when you're charging your cell phone? I've been thinking about this. Now, this is just a preliminary thought. Now, this isn't the final solution. One thought is you could put it in, let's say, a pot that you would cook on the stove and just put it in there, and air would circulate and somewhat, and the phone would probably be cool enough, and if it does catch on fire, it'll be in a metal pot. But don't do that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you do, you are preventing that signal from radiating out to the tower because of the metal partial Faraday cage that you're putting your cell phone in. So your phone would probably ramp up the transmission power. So you don't want to do that. But what would be as good as that to protect, let's say your desk or your, whatever the surface you put it on from a fire? Well, why don't you use a glass bowl? Try that. Now, seriously, because if you have a glass bowl, it won't attenuate the signal too much. And it would be relatively fire resistant or fireproof should the cell phone catch on fire. And the fire would probably be contained if you use the right shaped bowl in the bowl. Okay? Just a thought. Steve?
No, I agree. The metal pot is a very bad idea because it would ramp up the seeking out the tower itself and probably cause that battery to heat up quite a bit, trying to seek the tower itself. So that wouldn't be a good idea. The end of the glass bowl would still probably be some problems. It would probably still work a little bit trying to reach that tower through the glass, but certainly the metal around the cell phone itself would definitely increase that problem. But, like I said, you've pointed on to something really, really interesting here, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they actually give us something on this information that if they theorize what happened. Or are they just going to brush this under the carpet here, and we'll never hear about this story ever again? 34 people died, and there is causation. There's something that causes fire, and I would like to know it. And I think your theory of the cell phone charging might be right on the mark, right on the mark.
Okay. Let's move on to something else.
Sure.
Class, you know that I was running for the board of directors of Laclede Electric Cooperative, and I lost big. I mean, I was destroyed in terms of the number of votes. I don't think anyone has gotten fewer votes running for the position of director of Laclede Electric Cooperative in maybe a decade. No one has ever successfully challenged the board running for re-election. No one has ever won. So I am part of the no one has ever won club, of which there are very few. I challenged them 4 times. Nothing worked. Okay. So I want to read to you just, and I don't want to bore you with this, but I want to prove something to you. I want to prove to you why I did what I did. So it's going to take part of this segment and continue into the next segment. So I started out by saying, and I've got my my little presentation, 2-minute presentation in front of me, but I'm not going to read it all. I started out by saying I'm Vincent Finelli, cattle farmer and national radio talk show host, USA Prepares, identifying problems and providing solutions daily. I go on to say the existing board of directors has approved and installed smart meters on your homes and businesses. Smart meters cause cancer because of their electromagnetic and radio frequency transmissions. Medical doctors have confirmed this. Cancer was once rare, and now it has invaded every American family. If you want to lessen your chance of getting cancer, consider voting for me. Now, I said that the board will not sell you electricity without a smart meter. No electricity without a smart meter. And I wanted to opt out of, if you didn't want a smart meter, you should be able to opt out. Then I said, the board of directors has removed and destroyed all of our working analog meters. Cost you almost $5 million. Also, smart meters are remote-controlled power disconnect devices. Do you want this? Laclede disconnects power to approximately 550 owner members each month. That's over $6,000 a year. We'll talk a little bit more about why I said that when we come back. It's startling. Your jaw will drop. We'll be right back. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And, class, I want to tell you that everything I've said today is of my opinion, based on my experience and my knowledge. And I suggest that if you want to hear me actually say what I said previously, what I read of my presentation, you can go to YouTube. You can go to a search engine. You can type in the word YouTube, followed by Vincent, followed by Finelli, F-I-N-E-L-L-I, followed by the word Laclede, L-A-C-L-E-D-E. So YouTube, Vincent Finelli Laclede, and you'll find my presentation of a few weeks ago. And I mentioned that Laclede, they told me that they disconnect roughly 550 electric meter accounts per month. That's $6,600 a year. And there are 27 or 28,000 customers. So we're talking about 25% get disconnected remotely per year. There's no opting out of smart meters with Laclede Electric. And I want you to know that the board of Laclede, the management and the lawyers of Laclede listen to this broadcast. They listen. So they're looking for some way to stop me from talking. That's my opinion. Okay? So here's the next component. And this may apply to you. It's not just Laclede. Here's what's happening. This is just a microcosm of what is happening with the electric power utilities. So Laclede produces a magazine. Comes out once a month. Right after the election, the August election was at the end of August. The September issue just came in the mail after the election. The CEO, Mark Rocker, is on the front cover. The front cover is devoted to this whole thing of what I'm going to tell you. It's called Power for Your Life. Prepaid electric service. Quote, what is prepaid electric service? Food, gasoline. I'm reading this word for word. I'm not making this up. Quote, what is prepaid electric service? Food, gasoline, even cell phone minutes. We pay for those and most other goods and services before, that's underlined, we actually use them. Now, pay-as-you-go electric service, also called prepaid electric service, is growing in popularity for electric cooperative members. Residential members pay an amount up front and receive a notice via the method they choose, email or text message, when the credit balance is running low. Members can track daily uses and recharge their account from the comfort of home through Laclede Electric Cooperative's Smart Hub online payment portal with a credit or debit card or electronic check. If a payment is not made prior to the account balance reaching zero, the service is automatically disconnected. To reconnect, simply add at least a $25 credit to the account and service will be reactivated. No reconnect fees are charged. End quote. What this is saying, in my opinion, is you don't have to have a monthly bill. Heck, you can pay for the electricity before you use it. They say food, gasoline, and even cell phone minutes are prepaid. Nonsense. I'm telling you, when they may be thinking of McDonald's, where you pay before you get your poison. I'm not talking about that. If you go to a food store, you get the things, you put them in your cart, and then you pay for them. They're yours right then and there. They're yours. Gasoline? Heck, you used to be able to go to a gas station. A guy would pump the gas for you, and then you would pay him after you received the gas. You would pay for the food in your cart after you accumulated the food. Cell phones, many people have postpaid, meaning you've got an account with Verizon or some other crooked company like that, and you pay for your cell service after you use it. You pay for your taxes after the period has expired. You pay your federal taxes to the IRS after the income, although they do take some money out of your paycheck, during the earning period. But what I'm saying is, you don't pay for everything before you get it, and these guys are trying to convince you that you should prepay for electricity. Now, the problem is that GDP is probably going to go along with this and say, this is awesome. We can use our smartphones to track how much electricity we're using. And we can put $25 in, a week or a month or a day, whatever they choose to do. And the rest of us are going to suffer for this. The reason that we had analog meters is the electric company didn't know how much to bill us. So they'd say, well, let's go by the month. So we'll have the start reading, the end of month reading. We'll figure out how much electricity used. Then we'll send you a bill. Now they want you to pay before you use it. You got to be stupid to do that. And if something goes wrong with this wireless network of meters, if they get hacked, some jerk can shut off your electricity for fun. Now, what if you have a medical device? Let's say an oxygen generator or an oxygen concentrator or a sleep apnea machine or whatever it might be, an infant monitor, and some jerk shuts off your electricity. Or somebody at the office is having fun because they don't like you, and they shut off your power. Or the computer just has a hiccup. They call it a glitch. They're not glitches. A glitch is an unreproducible event. I'm talking about a programming error. What happens if the internet goes down or whatever this network is attached to? Because I tried to find out how this network works. I can't do it. I even called the manufacturer of the meters before the election in August to find out how these meters work. You can't find out. It's a secret. They won't tell you. Steve, your thoughts on this?
Well, these conveniences, they always try to pitch them with the convenience in our best interest. And I love when the technology is used against us. And this is definitely one of those technologies that will be monitoring you and, determining your usage. And like I said, the ability to turn it off. Quite controlling. And, but, you've mentioned it, the GDP, the general dumb population. They don't look beyond this. They buy into these little sales schemes of the convenience of all this technology. And all these technologies, these controlling technologies, these surveillance technologies are always being sold to the general public as a convenience for you. This is going to be good for you. You're going to enjoy this. This is a convenience for you. And most of the
you're
time,
muffled a little. Steve, you're muffled a little bit. Let me read one other little paragraph.
Now. I mentioned the F word, federal, FBI, and ever since then I've had to go back and forth 2 different types of phones. But these conveniences, they try to sell you this technology as a convenience, and it turns out to be quite the surveillance of the people and monitoring the people. So the GDP, the general dumb population, will soak this up, and they'll probably sell it. No problem in your area. I'm sure they'll sign on to this. Here, I'll pay before I get my services. It is stupid. It is very stupid.
All right. Let me read just a couple other sentences. Now, the whole front cover is devoted to this. One sentence says, let's see, where was that? Okay. If it's easier to make daily or weekly payments instead of a larger monthly payment, prepaid service may be right for you. Why would it be easier to make multiple payments rather than one payment? Why? Another thing they say is, this is unbelievable. They are addressing the GDP. No question about it. Quote, it can be hard enough remembering what you did and what the weather was like a week ago, let alone a month. With prepaid service, you will always be able to monitor what you are spending your energy dollars on because you can pay for it as you use it, end quote. They're telling you it's hard to remember what you did and what the weather was like a week ago.
Right.
They're treating people as if they are dumb.
Yep.
Well, actually, some of them are. I saw a whole room full.
Yep.
When I was at the annual carnival or circus. So they really want you to pay in advance. It's what happens when you put accountants at the upper level of management in corporations. Accountants are thinking money, 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 money. That's what they think about. That's why vehicles are poorly designed, because they're saying, well, yeah, but I know it takes 4 bolts to hold that in. And yeah, and we used to use 4 bolts and it's traditional, but I think we can do it with 3. We can say that 25%. We don't need that extra bolt. And then we have all kinds of problems. Just go to any car, any new car, and push with your thumb on the sheet metal. Next parking lot you go to, just try out some of these brand new cars. You won't believe how thin they are. Or when you're at a traffic light, look left, look right, and look at the vehicles and see how smashed up they are. And you go, how did it get so crumpled? What hit it so hard? And you'll realize it wasn't hit very hard. It's the metal is probably thinner than the paint on the metal. So here we are in this downward spiral. It's getting worse. Steve, you went through a horrific storm, Dorian. And I believe in the Bahamas, they're saying 30 have died. If you look at the images, it's not 30. It's more like in the hundreds.
Yeah.
In the hundreds. If you look at the Carolinas, massive destruction. What did you see? What were you prepared for, and what would you have done better? Now that you've had
I was
another
prepared.
experience.
For the most part, I was very prepared this time. My first big hurricane coming maybe my way. We did dodge the bullet where I live here in Central Florida. But what I did learn was ahead of time, I did tank our cars up, have enough gas for the generator. What I learned from you was the time that I might have to possibly run my generator. I may not have electricity for a week. So keeping that in mind, I had not thought of that. I'd just gone with the recommendations for my generator for oil, which was 10W30. And you put me onto the running time and the heat and everything else to break down the viscosity of the oil, that I should best probably run a 15W40 diesel conventional motor oil in this generator. I had not thought of that because the run time, I figured, I'll just shut it off every couple hours, but I may have to run a lot more than that. So that was an important thing to find out. I did not know, and glad that you told me that so I could share that with others. The gasoline, there was no gouging here. I was really surprised. I heard years ago during hurricanes they had a lot of price gouging on gasoline, on hotel rooms, things like that. I did not see that. I think the people were advised to call those in if they saw that, and they didn't do it. So panic buying at Walmart, big time. People who are not prepared, people who live here and know the hazards of living down here, especially along the coastline, who have not prepared. And this goes back to what I've said before on your show, Vincent, is that Americans are gamblers. They really are gamblers. They'll wait till the last minute. They just hesitate on everything when they should have been, prioritizing this and saying, this is a necessity. I need to do this now. Not wait till the last minute. Americans wait to the last minute. Got to get those batteries now. And then, of course, they're all gone. This is gone. All water's gone. Yeah.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Steve Elkins is with us in Florida, and he experienced Hurricane Dorian. Steve, what else can you tell us?
Well, I was just searching for that perfect word, and it just came to me, procrastination, risk-taking and procrastination. And Americans, they just do. I can't explain why they do. But the storm's always going to go elsewhere, and they're never very well prepared. It's like taking off on a trip without a spare tire. You got to have a spare tire. But down here, I just find people, they just procrastinate, and they just cross their fingers and say, well, maybe it'll go a different direction. And I felt very well prepared this time around. I will be better prepared for the next time. Some of the ideas I've kicked around and things I'm going to do for the next time, because this is going to be, happening again. But it's a procrastination, and I don't know how you teach people that. I don't know how do you change that philosophy of people saying, well, crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. I always like to be best prepared for all situations and not relying on government services ever, because I've seen how they've dropped the ball every time anyway. But
let me give you an
that's
example.
kind of what I learned, be better prepared.
Yeah, let me give you an example. How often do you see plain book matches for sale in a store? I just looked it up. Walmart, you can buy them for $4.11 plus $3.88 delivery. You're really looking at about $8 for 50 books of matches, right? 50. Well, I happen to mention that to our son. I haven't seen them. Who uses matches? They used to get them when you bought a pack of cigarettes. Well, you don't see that anymore. Well, because people have lighters. Well, that's pressurized butane. Do they leak? Absolutely. How long can you store it? I don't know, but they're under pressure, and they leak. So why not have some matches, right? Well, he was at a flea market, and he walked in the house. He was traveling. He happened to stop at a flea market during his travels out of state, and he handed me 4 packages, brand new, of books of matches. So that's 200 books of matches, all brand new, factory sealed. And he said, I bought these for $1. All of them. 200 books of matches for $1. That's a half a cent per pack of matches. And the guy that sold them to him couldn't wait to get rid of them. Was delighted he got his $1. Our son was delighted that the guy would sell them. Yeah. So what do? You put them in an ammo can, okay? If you're wondering what to do with them, put them in an ammo can, and they'll keep hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So how many people have matches?
Vincent, last time I saw books of matches you can actually get, and you couldn't buy them. You were given them for free. We're at a casino, because you can smoke in the casinos. I have never seen books of matches anymore to purchase, ever. It's like disappeared altogether. It's the lighter, it's the butane lighters. I did actually go out, and I found at our local Dollar Tree, the Chinese factory outlet there, wooden matches. I bought a big box of 300. I bought 2 of those for backups. But you just don't see the packs of matches anymore, except the Dollar Tree did carry them.
Mm-hmm. See, we heat with wood, and every once in a while we want to, it'll be glowing, and we'll want to get that fire started quickly. So how do we do that? Well, I'm not going to stick a butane lighter inside the firebox. I'm not going to do that. And I don't have any butane lighters. I don't need them because I have matches. I've got matches from 40, 50, 60 years ago. literally, in a jar, in like in a peanut butter jar from 40, 50, 60 years ago. So yeah, you can do that. You can do that. And they stay fine. You want to keep them out of the humidity. And they'll be great. So where did the matches go? Now you can buy the stick matches, yes, but they're a lot more expensive. Mm-hmm. And the book matches will do just as well in most instances. What else did you see people do that you thought was ridiculous?
I saw some ridiculous spending. People that you have to have your cigarettes, you have to have your alcohol. That was a priority in their life. Those are the people that we see on top of the rooftops when the floodwaters are high, and they're waiting for somebody from FEMA to pick them up with their helicopter. These are the ones that are toasting with their Budweiser with a cigarette in their mouth. I've seen so much irresponsibility. I mean, necessity. What do you need? What's the most important things you need? And somebody says, you know what, I need alcohol and I need cigarettes. And I saw those aisles also along with the snack food aisles. They were depleted. That's cheap and expensive food. I guess it goes along with the beer and the cigarettes. But just irresponsibility. And these are the people that our tax dollars are going to take care of and help rebuild their lives because they were so irresponsible. It goes along with the GDP, general dumb population. That's it.
How about this? How many of those people who were spending last minute, the procrastinators, how many of them were wearing flip-flops compared to hiking boots, compared to leather boots, compared to shoes that, if you're stepping in water and you can't see what you're going to be stepping on, heck, maybe it'd be better to have protective footwear. How many were wearing flip-flops? Were they or were they not?
Yeah.
There you go. Steve, thanks so much for being with us today, sharing your unreproducible time. You'll never get it back. And thank you for sharing that time with us and your experience. Steve Elkins.
Thank you, Vincent.
7 to 9 p.m. on Sundays, Republic.